Hey everybody. This video is actually the first in a series of videos that are going to cover the lesson in the week 5 module on the writing process, drafting. This first video here is going to discuss the PowerPoint that is listed as a sub-tab in that lesson. And then we will also start going over the paragraph development handout. And then I will continue going over that handout in the next video. Paragraph development is such a huge part of writing an essay. I mean, if you think about, we learned with intros and conclusions that they're each about 10% of your overall essay. So that leaves 80% that is the body of the essay, which is made up of paragraphs. So the majority of what you write depends on really strong, well-developed paragraphs. So this lesson is super important. There's a lot of stuff that we go over in it, so I'm breaking it down into several videos instead of trying to have it in one long video. I figured if I break it up, it'll help you be able to manage your time a little better and just watch them in increments if necessary, or you can watch them one right after another if you have time. But you definitely want to watch each video because each one will cover an important element of paragraph development. But like I said, this first one here is going to cover the PowerPoint and the first part of the handout on paragraph development. So looking at that PowerPoint, you know, on the second slide, it says paragraphs are paramount. They really are. They are super important. It says they are the building blocks of strong composition, and that should make sense because, again, they make up the majority of your essay. So there's very strong reasons to make sure that you understand what a well-developed paragraph consists of. And so the next slide tells us that there are 4 basic elements to a paragraph. We have a transition, a topic sentence, support sentences, and a point sentence. So the remaining slides, or the next few slides, go through each of those elements, and I'm going to go ahead and touch on them. We do discuss them in greater detail when we go through the handout. But I do want to make sure that we at least touch on them, and that way we know exactly what each element is and what it consists of, and then we'll go into more detail in the next video. So the first element was transitions. And it says that the transitions are like a bridge. That's what a transition does. It takes you from one thing to the next, like a bridge. And it links the prior paragraph to the current paragraph. And it says that it's positioned at the beginning of your paragraph. So basically what that means is you need something that links this new paragraph that you're working on, that links it to the paragraph that came before it. Some sort of transition that shows us why this new paragraph is coming after the one before it. It shouldn't be random, right? There should be a flow to, your train of thought that gets us from one idea to the next. So you want that transition to do that work for you. It's at the beginning of the paragraph. A lot of people think that a transition comes at the end of the previous paragraph, and quite honestly, you'll probably see it that way even in professional writing. But if you want to get technical, the transition comes at the beginning of the new paragraph, right? It could be an entire sentence that transitions us from the previous to the new. A lot of times, though, it's just a phrase that transitions us, and that phrase is connected to the next element of a paragraph, which is the topic sentence. So the topic sentence is the first or second sentence of the paragraph, typically the first, though, and it announces the subject of that paragraph. And it makes a statement or a claim, probably relating in some way to your thesis. If we're talking about, body paragraphs, they usually are your main points that you're using to explain or defend your thesis. So each paragraph is going to be related back to your thesis in some way. So whatever that topic sentence is, it needs to not only announce what this new paragraph is specifically about, but it will also connect back to your main point in some way, like your overall main point for the essay. We are going to work quite a bit on topic sentences, but just, you know, a little more about them here. They capture the main idea of that paragraph. And there should really only be one main idea for the paragraph. It should create interest, that sentence. It should help your reader predict what you're going to do in that paragraph. Are you going to be comparing and contrasting? Are you going to be providing evidence from source material? Are you going to be showing cause and effect relationships? There should be something about that topic sentence that kind of lets your reader know what you're going to be doing in that paragraph. That topic sentence needs to somehow address the purpose of the paragraph. Relating it back to the thesis of the essay will help with that, because clearly if this paragraph is helping you defend that thesis, then that's what its purpose is. And it will set the stage for all of the sentences that come next, all of the supporting sentences. So the topic sentence, it's only one sentence, but it has a big job to do. So we are going to spend a good bit of time going over those more thoroughly. But as I just mentioned, one of the things that the topic sentence does is set the stage for the supporting sentences. And even though the topic sentence has a big job to do, the bulk of your paragraph is going to be made up of your support sentences. It's the rest of the paragraph, basically. Those supporting sentences are your backup. It's your evidence to support and explain the topic sentence. It could be providing details, providing examples, providing explanation, providing evidence from sources, things like that. But you want to make sure that they are logically ordered, all of those support sentences. They all need to relate clearly and directly to the topic sentence. They all should be serving a purpose within that topic sentence. And if they're not, well, then you might need to rethink those sentences. And they should also promote interest. You know, as you've grabbed your reader's attention in the beginning with a strong introduction, you need to sustain that interest with compelling topic sentences and compelling support sentences within each paragraph. You don't want your reader to get bored in the middle of the essay. You have to make sure that you're tying everything together and that you are providing interesting information in your paragraphs. The paragraph ends with a point sentence, a concluding sentence. So it reinforces or restates and stresses the main point. So it somehow ties back to the topic sentence, not word for word, but in some way it kind of closes out that paragraph. So you can look at a paragraph almost like we look at a whole essay. You know, your whole essay starts with an introduction that grabs your reader's attention and has a thesis statement that previews exactly what your essay is about. That's your topic sentence. The essay has body paragraphs that then hopefully prove that thesis or explain that thesis. That's what your supporting sentences do. They reinforce the topic. And then your essay ends with a concluding paragraph that reminds your reader of everything that you were trying to accomplish and clearly indicates that the essay has come to an end. And that's what your point sentence does. So, you know, your essay is a much longer version of that, but still it's mirrored within a paragraph as well. One of the things that the slides talk about, the PowerPoint talks about, in addition to those 4 elements, is something about cohesion. And we will be talking a little more in detail about cohesion as well. But I do want to mention the term and explain briefly what we mean by that, because it is also a very important element of your paragraph. And it really is more about the support sentences. You can work on your topic sentence, and you have you can work on your transition in the topic sentence that links this new paragraph to the one that came before it. And you can have that super excellent, solid topic sentence. But if your supporting sentences aren't as strong, then the paragraph will fall apart. One of the things that a paragraph needs to be strong is what we call cohesion. And that one slide on the PowerPoint has this really cool looking graphic, this really cool image. And it says, cohesion is weaving sentences together, right? That's what we mean when we say something is cohesive. Everything belongs and everything fits together perfectly. You might also hear me refer to it as flow, the flow of your paragraph, the flow of your sentences. You don't want the paragraph to jump around. It's always disappointing when I read an essay and there are some really good thoughts in the paragraph, but they're just randomly, scattered throughout the paragraph. So I can't fully appreciate or understand the paragraph, the point that's trying to be made, because it's not cohesive. We have not done a good enough job of arranging the sentences in a logical order and providing transitional phrases that link the thoughts together, that show your reader how you got from thought A to thought C, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about cohesion, but I at least wanted to make sure you had heard the word and kind of had a basic understanding of what it means. Another thing that the PowerPoint talks about is paragraph length. Even my daughter, she's in 5th grade, she asks me this all the time. Is this long enough? Is this paragraph long enough? And I always tell her the same thing, like, has it done its job? There is no easy answer to that question. How long should a paragraph be? Technically, you could have a paragraph that's one sentence. It would only happen every once in a while and under special circumstances, but it's not illegal. You could have a paragraph that takes up almost the whole page, in like a Word document typed in double spaced. It could take up almost a whole page. And then you have plenty of paragraphs that fall somewhere in between those two extremes. We will learn when we go through the handout what you need to think about when to help you decide when to start a new paragraph. But in terms of the length itself, the slides, talk about what is the medium. Obviously, anything that's on the internet is probably expected to be shorter paragraphs. What genre are you writing in? What rhetorical pattern are you using? Who are your readers? Are they patient or are they hurried? Almost everyone's in a rush these days, but that doesn't mean we should use short paragraphs only in our essays. How much support do you need? That is what I think is most important when figuring out if a paragraph is an appropriate length. How much supporting evidence do you need for that idea? That is a huge determining factor. If you have a really big paragraph, first of all, check and make sure that there's only one idea being discussed in that big paragraph, and we will learn a little bit more about that as well. And if you feel like that it is only one idea, check your claim. Like, is it just that you have a more complex claim and therefore require more supporting sentences to explain it? Then it might be okay to have it be longer. If you have a really short paragraph, you need to check to make sure that you have fully thought out and fully covered the topic of that paragraph. Have you explained it enough? Do you have enough supporting sentences? And then you want some variety. You don't want, all short paragraphs, all long paragraphs. You want to mix it up a little bit. It, helps keep your reader's interest. And if you truly need more time to explore a topic, then that paragraph's going to be longer. Some paragraphs might be transitional paragraphs instead of a transitional sentence. Sometimes, with more complicated topics for essays, essay subject matter, you might actually need a whole paragraph to transition your reader from one section to the next. But there's no easy answer to the question. But once you have a better understanding of the rules of paragraph development, that will definitely help you determine if the paragraph you're working with is an appropriate length. But there's not just one easy answer to it. So if you have any questions about that PowerPoint, feel free to let me know. But right now, I want to go ahead and take that basic information and start looking at some of those elements in more detail. So I'm switching now to the handout on paragraph development, achieving the perfect paragraph. It's right there on the screen if you're looking at it at some other time, but I also have a link to download the handout if you would prefer to do that. So looking at this handout, we're going to look at the first little bit of it, and then I'll move to another video. But the beginning of the handout actually, shows us a quote from a composition textbook. So I'm going to read a little bit of that quote. So a paragraph is a collection of connected sentences that focus on a single idea. With few exceptions, your writing projects will be made up of paragraphs. They should all have paragraphs, each developing an idea related to the topic of your writing. So each paragraph develops an idea that is related to your topic. To guide readers through a piece of writing, arrange the paragraphs in a logical order and make the connections among them clear. These paragraphs also need to support your purpose, which is often asserted in a main point or thesis statement. But first of all, you need to structure each paragraph effectively, and there are 3 things we need to look at to ensure we have done this: focus, topic sentences, and transitions. So we're going to look at all 3 of those elements, not all in this one video, but that's what I'm going to be breaking down into different ones. But we're going to start with a little bit, sort of an introduction to the idea of paragraph focus. The next part of the handout has a big paragraph, a larger paragraph that is actually taken from a book called Edges by Ralph Raphael. In its original form, this is actually 2 paragraphs, but we have smushed them together, and the idea is once you read through it, can you figure out where the original break occurred? So you might be able to figure it out pretty quickly and be totally on point. You might be able to figure it out, but maybe miss the mark by just a little bit. Hopefully you can at least do that, get close to figuring out where the break occurs. If you don't, if you really just have no clue where the paragraphs should be broken up, then that's okay, because we're going to talk about where it's supposed to be broken and why, and then we're going to look at more examples. So this paragraph from Edges, it says, the salesmen are all professionals who follow the country fair circuit. The pen vendor, aged 43, has been a drummer ever since he was 18 years old. His sales pitch, repeated verbatim every hour or so, seems to have a will of its own which has little or nothing to do with the stone-faced man who delivers it. It's just a job, like any other job, although it demands that he have no home other than the camper in which he travels. Like the barkers and peddlers of years past, the people of the fair are creatures of the road who remain forever on the outskirts of the communities they serve. But the salesmen are not alone. The carnies, as the amusement park folks call themselves, have transformed the country fair circuit into a way of life. Traveling together in one continuous party, they wear Carney Power insignia on the back of their Levi's jackets and like to hang together when the local toughs start hankering for a fight. They are proud to belong to a select group of gypsies, tramps, and thieves, self-appointed outcasts from the small-town societies in which they set up shop. Like the salesmen who travel beside them, they live off the suckers who come to the fair to blow a few bucks and catch a passing glimpse of bright lights and fancy things. So, keeping in mind what we learned in the first paragraph up at the top taken from the composition textbook, that a paragraph is a collection of connected sentences that focus on a single idea, right? A single topic. This passage from Edges starts with the topic of the salesman, right? The salesmen are all professionals, blah, blah, blah. And he goes on to describe the salesman, particularly using one, kind of catch-all salesman as the example. By the time we get to the end of this passage, we realize that we have switched to a new topic, which are the carnies, right? Both the salesman and the carnies are part of this amusement park traveling carnival thing that Raphael is talking about. That's his overall topic of the essay. But the first paragraph is about the salesman, and wherever we decide the break is going to be, that still remains to be seen, but we know that the second paragraph is about the carnies. So if we know what a good paragraph consists of, we have to have the topic and the transition, supporting sentences, point sentence. Remember, the transition from the previous paragraph to the new one occurs at the beginning of the new one, oftentimes along with the topic sentence, but in some instances, it might be a sentence on its own. So if that's the case, you've got the point, you've got one paragraph, topic sentence, supporting sentences, point sentence. Then you move to a second paragraph, transition, topic sentence, support sentences, point sentence. Should follow that pattern almost every time. So the trick here is, okay, can we figure out where the point sentence is for the first paragraph and where the transition in the topic sentence is for the second paragraph? And if you figured out that the switch, that our switch in focus starts to happen with "but the salesmen are not alone," then you were right. Most students at least pick up on that. Their gut tells them that that is where we need to focus our attention. What they don't always know, though, is, does that sentence, "but the salesmen are not alone," does that belong at the end of the first paragraph or the beginning of the second paragraph? The transition happens at the beginning of the new paragraph. So that would be the first sentence of the second paragraph. The first paragraph ends with our point sentence, like the barkers and peddlers of the years past, the people of the fair are creatures of the road who remain forever on the outskirts of the communities they serve. That is his point sentence, wrapping up that paragraph about the salesman. But the salesmen are not alone. The carnies, as the amusement park folks call themselves, blah, blah, blah. That is our new paragraph. So we have the transition occurring in a sentence and then the topic sentence. What is the topic of this new paragraph? The carnies, right? So that one's a little easier. So we're going to look at a couple of more paragraphs in the next video, but I wanted to at least introduce this idea of paragraph focus. So you have looked at an existing set of paragraphs and figured out where the break should occur. So now we understand a little bit more about containing topics, containing subjects to a paragraph. And when you switch to a new one, you switch to a new paragraph, right? So we're going to look at a couple of examples that aren't quite so easy, right? So go ahead and whenever you are ready, move on to the next video where I continue going over the paragraph development handout.